So I am excited to welcome one of my favorite people in the world, Mr. Sean Ogle. So before we dive in, Sean, I want to just preface this by saying that I would not have gotten the success that I have without this gentleman here. So I'm excited to have a conversation with him because this is how I got started back in 2011 when life was not looking that great for me. I discovered Sean and Location Rebel. So I'm excited for you guys to learn more about Sean and his journey and all the things. But welcome, Sean. I'm excited to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here, and I can't believe it's been 8 years since we first got to know each other.
I know.
In 8 years, I think we've only met in person, one time?
One time.
But it's awesome to be doing this, after so much time.
I know. I'm excited to just be able to get to chat with you because it's hard when we're on opposite sides of the world to find time zones, and because I can for sure say that if I was in Portland, I'd be popping around.
It's a good place to be. One of these days you're going to get out here.
Oh, I can't wait. I would love to come visit. So I'm just going to dive straight in. So for everyone that's watching, this is an expert interview series. So I really want to bring conversations to you so that you can hear just some of the nitty-gritty stuff that happens when you're starting a business, but also what life looks like before you make that transition into a business. So that is the goal of these conversations. So I've got a whole bunch of questions, and we're going to see how we go in terms of getting through those. And then if you have any questions for Sean, there will be an opportunity to connect with him later. You'll see that in the show notes below. So Sean, the first question that I just really want to ask you is, what is like the one thing you wish you'd known when you began your business? Like when you started this journey, do you ever reflect back and go, wish I'd known that?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things I wish I'd known was that the worst case scenario really isn't so bad. It's like, I imagine some of the people listening to this, they've been wanting to do something or thinking about doing something, or they're starting to dip their toes into doing something, and they get, kind of scared. You're like, what if this, what if that? And the thing I kind of realize is, I've taken some fairly big leaps, and you start thinking logically. It's like, okay, what is the absolute worst case? Okay, I quit my job. I moved to Thailand. Worst case scenario, it doesn't work out. I come back home. I get another job. I run out of money and I go get another job. So, and along with that, the chances of the worst case scenario coming to pass also not nearly as likely as you might feel like it is. And so every time I remember that, it kind of pushes me forward. Oh yeah, do the thing you're thinking about doing, or do the thing you're afraid to do, because the chances are, even if it doesn't work, it's probably not going to be the worst case scenario and absolutely fail.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. Like I quite often, whenever I'm thinking about starting something new, I write down all the worst case scenarios so that I'm aware of them. And then I'm just kind of like, okay, well, my brain switches into problem solving. So I'm like, awesome. These are like the worst case scenarios. I can kind of problem solve them, or I'm aware of them, and I'm just kind of like, you know what? It's not life and death. Like, this is not going to make as big an impact as I think it's going to. So I love that you said
well,
that.
And one of the things I've done that this just kind of reminded me of is there's all these things that we're afraid of. And, we're afraid of money, we're afraid of what people are going to think, we're afraid of failure. But in the end, it all comes down to really being afraid of one thing, which is uncertainty. And there's kind of 3 levels of uncertainty. It's fearing the uncertainty, where most people kind of reside, and that's where most people stay. It's like they want nothing to do with uncertainty. The second level is overcoming it and saying, okay, like I'm afraid, but I'm going to do this anyway. And then the third is embracing it, where you look at uncertainty as an asset. And one of the things I did early on is I wrote down all of the things that I was afraid of. And then I kind of realized it's like, oh, these aren't all different things. They're all basically the same thing. It's all just the fear of the unknown and the fear of what's going to happen. And by looking at it that way and breaking them down, then you can kind of create like scenarios and say, okay, well, if this happens, then I'll do this. And if this happens, then I'll do this, to give you the confidence to move forward. And so I found that mindset change has been really helpful for moving forward and taking action, because that really is what it comes down to.
Yeah, it's like a choose your own adventure. Those were my
It is a
favorite
little
books.
bit.
Write it down, choose your own adventure. I love that.
Exactly.
So good. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to touch on is, and this is one that I didn't prep you with, but it is.
Perfect. Those are the best ones.
I love these questions. What do you think is your biggest strength, and then how do you feel like you've used it in life and your business?
I think my biggest strength, and this is going to come across conceited, but I'll explain, is my personality.
Mhm.
In the sense that I'm not trying to be a marketing guru. I'm not trying to be like, the next big like internet guy. I'm literally a regular person that's figured out some things and I've shared them with others and said, hey, this has worked for me. Maybe it'll work for you. This has worked for now a lot of people within our Location Rebel community. Maybe it'll work for you. And so I really try with everything I do online, try and just be myself, be genuine, and actually care about the people I'm talking to. And I'm sure at a certain point, like that's been to my detriment in terms of money or whatever. But, I found that just being myself, being genuine, actually caring, and that persona and doing that has taken me a long way because it makes it a lot easier to build trust. And more importantly, it makes it a lot easier to build real relationships. Like, you joined Location Rebel years and years ago, and here we are still talking and we're friends. And that's all because I have a vested interest in everybody. And I'm not trying to say I'm better than anybody else or anything like that. I just genuinely want to help. And I think that has carried me a long way in everything that I've done.
Yeah. And I would agree. Like, I would say that that is definitely your biggest strength, but also unique in an online world. Like, we are inundated with all these like marketing messages and all these gurus, and you get a quick sense from seeing them, like if you meet them in person, whether they are genuinely
Yep.
genuine or not. Like, it's very easy. Like, I like to call it my bullshit
Yeah.
radar goes up very quickly. Like, you become quite savvy at being able to pick those up. And that is one of the reasons why I personally joined
Yeah.
Location Rebel, was because I connected with that. And particularly for me, who's in New Zealand, like other side of the world, where this kind of stuff is definitely not mainstream. Like, it's not in your face or anything like that. And we also have the added layer of being bombarded with like Americanisms. Like, this person's
Totally.
so American, like, so you automatically have like your guard up. But I didn't get that from you. And that has always been kind of my guiding thing too, is being able to go, if I trust my gut, which I do, and that person speaks straight to that, then I have no problem, investing in that thing
Yeah.
that they're
I, s-
promoting.
I say the best compliment you can give me is if we meet in person and you say, huh, you're exactly like I thought you were going to be. Like, you're exactly who you are online. You're the same person in real life. Because that's what I try. Like, I've met a lot of people that I knew online, met them in person. And I would say more than half the time, you're like, you're not quite who I thought you were. Not necessarily like in a bad way, but it's like, you're not quite who you make yourself out to be online. And so I just try and be myself and I try and be genuine with everything.
Yeah, I agree, because I mean it's relatively easy to hide behind a computer and like put on a specific persona,
Yep.
um, compared to when you meet someone in person. Like, you can be slightly different, and you're right. Like, there is just that layer of that's not quite what I
Not quite
thought,
right here. For sure.
what you predicted. So
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so keeping in this kind of vein of strengths, but now switching more to focusing on your business strengths. Like, what is the number one strategy, or the best strategy that you have had the most success with in your business? Now, I know that we probably should have said this. I know that you've had multiple businesses. Location Rebel is like your biggest one, but
Yep.
thinking about all of those, has there been one strategy or thing that has really stood out the most, that has been the most success for you in business?
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways you can look at it. I could say, you know, one obvious answer for me is email marketing. It's like I've done a pretty good job of building email funnels and building sales sequences and building relationships with the people on my list. It's like first email you're going to get from me is saying, hey, I want you to hit reply right now. Tell me one thing you're struggling with and what your perfect day looks like. And so when people respond to that, I do my best to respond to as many of them as I can, and I'll give them a response and give them feedback. Hey, you're struggling with this. Well, you might check this out, or you might take a look at this. And that catches people off guard. They're like, oh, it's weird that you're telling this random dude from the internet is like telling me to like actually hit reply. And then they do it. And it's even weirder when they get a real response from me. And that kind of goes back to building relationships, being genuine. And that's not necessarily infinitely scalable. That's not going to make me millions of dollars, but at the point where things are at now, even though I spend a lot of my time answering emails, it's totally worth it. And so I think that's one thing that has been really successful with just about everything that I've done. If you want to go even more broad, I would say writing. The more I write and the more consistently I write, the more success I have. So whether that's writing content for blog posts, whether that's sending emails to reach out to build connections with other people, whether that's sending sales emails, whether that's building marketing funnels, whether it's video scripts. This is kind of a realization I've had recently is that the more I write, the more success I'm going to have. It's as simple as that. And so, I haven't always had the best habit of it, but over the last 10 plus years, I've generally written something almost every single day, even if it's just one email, even if it's, part of a blog post or whatever, but that consistency in writing and creating over time has led to, quite a bit of success.
I love that. And I love that you like the email marketing piece, because I think it ties directly into your biggest strength of personality. So it's just you're being genuine, and you're right. Like it's not normal for someone that you don't know to respond to an email. Like, yeah, you might respond to an email because that happens a lot. Like I join lots of email lists, and they say, tell me what your biggest struggle is, and you reply back and crickets.
Yeah.
Like it just disappears.
Well, and I do I'm not going to say respond to everyone, but I will say I respond to everyone that gives me a thoughtful message.
Yes.
If someone takes some time to write something, I want to do everything I can to reciprocate that, because, your time is just as important as my time. And so, if you take the time to do it, then I want to do what I can to get back. Yeah. So as long as I have the bandwidth to do it, that's going to be something that stays in the business.
I love it. I mean, I do the same because I love to chat to people and do the same thing because I love building relationships, and I just always come back to being on this side of the world. I want to like talk to as many people as possible because New Zealand is very small.
There's so many people here. It's even smaller when you look at the number of people that are probably doing the type of work that we're doing. So.
Exactly. Agree. Completely agree. Okay, here is a wild card. Let's just to mix things up. A wild card question, which is, if you could have a billboard with anything on it, what would it be and why?
A billboard promoting myself or a billboard giving a message to other people?
Whichever one you want to go with. It's your call.
Let's see. I think I gave it away and just said like it would just be a giant thing that says write more, because that's what, no matter what type of business you have online, it all comes down to some form of writing. Another one I might say is keep going no matter what. Mm-hmm. Because that's one of the biggest things I see between people that are not successful and people that are successful within Location Rebel is the people that are willing to be both consistent and persistent over a long period of time. Those are the ones that have success. All too often you get shiny object syndrome. You're like, this is going to be the newest thing. This is going to be great. I'm going to join a course. I'm going to get in the community. 3 weeks in, you hit a roadblock and then you don't really do anything. You get frustrated. You forget about it for a couple days. You try and go back. You still have the roadblock. And then before you know it, you haven't done anything. But the people that every day move past that, spend at least a little bit of time on the business, even if it's 10 minutes, doing that every single day. I don't know many people that have done that haven't had a certain level of success within, 18 months. Mm-hmm. So I think that, more often than not, it's just a matter of getting over those little hurdles and keeping going when you're starting out. And the problem is most people just stop.
Mm-hmm. So how do you do that? How do you get over, like, if you are struggling, how do you get over those hurdles? Like, what does that look like?
Well, I think one of my favorite examples, and I've talked about this numerous times, is one, so finding accountability.
Mm.
And if you can find someone who's doing the same thing that you are, has the same goals to hold yourself accountable, that's huge. So for instance, when I was in my day job in finance, my best friend, we'd taken a trip to Rio de Janeiro. We saved up all our vacation time to do it. We went to Carnival. It was amazing. 3 weeks after we got back, he quit his job and he moved to Hawaii. And basically, this was in April. He's like, I'm going to spend the next 8 months just treading water in Hawaii. If I can break even money wise, then in January, I'm going to start a world trip and I'm going to go travel the world. And so I would talk to him probably 3 days a week on my lunch break.
Mm.
And I'd be like, hey, like, what's going on? He's like, I just got done surfing. I'm sitting at the coffee shop overlooking the ocean. I'm about to go take a sunset helicopter cruise, because he was working as a concierge at a hotel. So like he had to go do all the fun things to be able to explain to the guests what it was. Whereas like, he'd be like, what about you? What are you doing? I was like, oh, just crunching numbers in the spreadsheet. And so every day, or, a few times a week, I would talk to him. And that was like the encouragement. It's like, hey, like, I want you to take this world trip with me. I want you to travel with me. And I had to find a way to stay accountable. And I had to find a way to do the things that I said I was going to do. And so I ended up leaving my job, and we ended up starting this trip together in January in Thailand. And I stayed there and he kind of kept going. But the example I was going to use is in Location Rebel. You had an accountability group that you guys talked for once a week or whatever it was for a long time. And I think just about every single person that was in that group has now had success and has got their own business. And I mean, it's the perfect example of, find people to hold yourself accountable and you're going to be better off.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, we had that accountability group for 2 years. Like, we were solidly talking, and the only reason we're not necessarily chatting is just because we all didn't need it anymore. Like, it was just,
you all kind of grow your businesses, and they're different types of businesses. So at a certain point, you're just like, okay, like, we're successful. Now we got to go find more people within our industry that we can learn from even more, and so on.
Agree. Oh, I love that. That's so cool. That was a nice little side tangent. Okay, so a lot of what I personally teach, and what a lot of people come or discover me is, or find out about me, is productivity based. Like, I always get asked, how do you do the things that you do? How have you got so many books written? Like, how does that happen? And a lot of it is, centered in productivity, but productivity is massive. Like, there's so many different ways that you can be productive, and I always say it's more about understanding what your biggest goals are, or what it is you're trying to achieve. But Sean, I would love to know what kind of if you're trying to get something done or moving through something, is there like a productivity go-to tactic or tip or strategy that you use to try kind of get you back on track, or that you just consistently do that works?
One is kind of going back to that writing thing. So much of what I do is built around that. I've always got to be creating something. And so setting a time, usually in the morning, like first thing in the morning, I'm setting aside time to write on whatever it is I'm going to write that day. Also, I think really understanding my body and understanding when I work well, when I don't, and being honest with myself about it. So I know, we were just talking about this before we got on the call. It's like, I know that when pretty much I can wake up as early as I want, and I'll start working, and then till about 1:00, like, I'm good. And so if I wake up at 9:30, like around 1, I'm going to hit a lull and I need to stop. If I wake up at 5 a.m., I can get going like all the way till 1:00. So I recognize when I have to get stuff done, then it becomes, okay, I've got to shift my lifestyle a little bit to the point where, I'm able to go to bed early. I'm able to wake up and, put the time in early. And then also recognize that I have just about no matter what, after lunch, I hit like a lull. It's like, I can't be productive. So between 1 and say like 4, it's just done. And so what I try and do is say, okay, I know I'm not going to be productive during that time, so I'm not going to try and be. I'm going to get away from the computer. I'm going to go for a hike, or I'm going to go play golf, or I'm going to meet somebody, or I'm going to do a call like this, or do something fun and say, I'm not going to try because I've spent all morning sitting at my computer. And then usually I'll have a second wind in the evening where I can get another hour or 2 of work done. And so I think that's been the biggest thing for me, is understanding my body, my cycle, and what really allows me to be productive. And there's a book called When by, I think, Daniel Pink. So that's basically all about your body's natural cycles and how to manage that. So if that's something that, you know, people are interested in, it's worth checking out.
Yeah, I'm going to check that out, because I do find that a lot of it is in like energy management as well, because
Yep.
it's really hard to be productive if you don't have energy to do the things that you need to do. So if you're finding that you get to the end of the day and you're trying to attempt to do something, you've just spent an entire day working, the likelihood of you being like your energy being in a space where you're going to be able to be productive is like zero. But I do like that you say that you get a second wind, because I'm the complete opposite. Like I'm someone that I'm like early morning, like 3:30 early. I'm like you though. I get to about 2:00 and my brain's just like, nah, let's
So you're done here.
let's check out. But I don't tend to get a second wind again, because I think my brain's just like, we're getting up at 3:30. It's like,
Yeah.
you go to bed.
And I will say it is very dependent on what I have going on. So it's like, if I'm like trying to get a new product out, or I'm trying to hit a deadline or something, then I'm really focused on work and I'll get that second win. But a lot of the time, like, I'm a pretty social person. I'm going out to like meet somebody for happy hour. I'm cleaning the house or doing. So it's just because I get that second win doesn't necessarily mean that it's going towards work. In fact, it's usually probably not going towards work, but doing something else that I enjoy that might be more productive than, you know, sitting around and playing video games.
Gotcha. I love it. Not like me, where I get my nana pants on around 8:30.
Nice.
Oh, that's hilarious. I love that. Okay, so we are getting close to being done, but before that happens, where can people connect with you online, Sean? Like, if everyone wants to stalk you and figure out all about you, what does that look like?
Way too many places. So locationrebel.com, by far the biggest one. If you want to build a small business that allows you to work from anywhere, that's kind of what we do. At Sean Ogle, SeanOgle, on both Twitter and Instagram. And for those random people, there's probably only one of you listening to this that's into golf. My other brand is called Breaking 80 with 80 spelt out, where I'm trying to play the top 100 golf courses in the world. So I'm documenting that. And that's kind of my other thing.
Tell me, how many golf courses are you up to?
I've played 50 of the top 100 in America, and I think I've played 45 or 46 of the top 100 in the world.
Wow.
So the next frontier is Australia, New Zealand. There's like 15 I've got to play. And so it's a matter of like, I'm literally going to take like a month-long trip and go and do this. But trying to plan a month-long trip to Australia is not necessarily the easiest thing to do.
It's not. I can't. That's awesome. So what? I just want to talk about that before we move on. But what made you decide to do like the golf thing, or even start a business around that? Because I know you've got like the website and all those sorts of things.
Yeah, I'm one of those people that I've got a lot of hobbies. And so I like the idea of building brands around those hobbies that enhance my enjoyment of them. So when I started the golf site, like, I'd never played a private course in my life. I was kind of like, hey, maybe I can start this site and it'll get me some free golf. It'll introduce me to some people in, you know, the golf community, and it'll allow me to play some of these private courses I wouldn't have been able to play otherwise. And so for the first 2 years, didn't treat it like a business. I just kind of wrote about it whenever I felt like it. And then eventually you start realizing, oh, like, got some traction here. People are paying attention to this. And so before you know it, like, now I'm, you know, rarely do I pay to play golf. I've played some of the best courses in the world. I've met some unbelievable people through it. And a similar things happened with Location Rebel. I mean, the people that I've met since starting that site have been unbelievable, have opened me up to all sorts of experiences I wouldn't have had. And so I, you know, to my own detriment, I don't have the time and bandwidth to do this, but it's like, okay, I want to start a, you know, site around entrepreneurship and travel, and something that will allow me to document that. Location Rebel. I want to document my journey in golf. Okay, here. I'm working on now a new cocktail website. I've got this other goal of going to the top 100 bars in the world, of which I've been to 58 of the top 100. Got weird thing for quests and lists. But every time I do that, I end up being able to indoctrinate myself into a whole new community and make it a lot easier to meet people that have similar interests as me. And so that's been more than the money, more than the business side of things. That's been the most fulfilling part.
Oh, I love that. So just taking something that you're passionate about and seeing what that looks like. But again, your whole genuine thing coming through. Like you're just like, I'm just going to try this out because this is something that I already love doing.
Yep.
Let's see what happens.
Well, and also by taking the mindset of I'm not going to worry about making money. I'm just going to write about it. I'm going to put it out there and see what happens. Like that's what has made it successful. And that's what's so nice about, whether you start out freelancing or you start out, having a remote job or whatever, having something that pays the bills, that allows you to focus on that kind of passion project down the road is super valuable. Because if you're like, I'm going to quit my job and start a blog about, insert hobby here, what's going to happen is within a month or two, you're gonna be like, okay, like I got to make money. And then you start cutting corners or you start doing things that, maybe you wouldn't otherwise do if you weren't hurting for money, or you try and monetize it too quickly. But by not trying to make any money off Breaking 80 for the first couple of years, that's what built the trust. So that when I did have something, when the time came where I had something to sell, people are like, here, take my money. I trust you. Like, here you go. And that's kind of how it worked.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, that's exactly right. Like if you can do something and not be trying to monetize it too quickly, like just be genuine. Like really, if you lead first through like serving others, everything else just kind of takes care of itself. Like,
and I
always experienced that.
Totally. And I know not everyone is in the situation where it's like you start a business or you start something online. It's like, and you need to make money. That's kind of what it's all about. So I get that, but it's what I call a bridge business. You're in your day job, you start something. Usually I think freelancing is the best way to go. That's going to help you start to build some skills, build some income, build some confidence. That's going to bridge the gap to whatever that final thing is, that thing that you want to be doing for the rest of your life. Yeah. So for me, it was like, I started Location Rebel. I did freelance SEO. That was kind of my bridge business, freelance SEO and freelance writing, which then, allowed me to do Location Rebel and Breaking 80 full time. And so that's kind of a concept that I would consider for people that are just getting started and trying to figure out the best way to get going.
Yeah, I agree. Because that's exactly what I did. I did freelance writing through Location Rebel, and now I'm an author. Who would have ever thought?
And how many books have you written now?
29, and I'm on my 30th right now.
That is insane. I should be interviewing you about productivity.
Like, it just happens. Like, that's the thing.
Just magically, like, one day it's like, here's my book. Just like that. And then 28 times, again, it happens.
Repeat. Yeah, it just happens. They just magically appear. I wish they did magically appear, because that would make life a lot easier. Well, it's been amazing chatting with you, Sean. I so appreciate you being here. Now, I know that you have a special gift for people who are finding this on the interwebs. What is that?
Yeah. So if you go to locationrebel.com/hi, we've got a 6-day guide that's all about basically how to build a lifestyle business, how to build this bridge business that I just talked about. So walks you through kind of the exact same process I went through, actually the exact same progress kind of you went through. So if you're just starting to get started online, you're trying to figure out what your next steps are, then this is a great way to kind of introduce yourself to that. And, the way I think is the best way to go about it. So awesome. Check that out.
Yay. Thanks so much, Sean. Again, I super appreciate it. And again, if you guys want to check Sean out, go to locationrebel.com. It will give you all the things. And have you still got the desk exploding thing? Is that still?
Oh, absolutely. That is still there.
You've got to check it out. If you haven't seen it, definitely go check it out. And I will catch you guys on the flip side.